Hey everybody, it's Katie again. Today we're going to make a flower cane. I don't do a lot of red, so I figured, hey, why not do some red? I have 2 balls of souffle sitting here, and I'm going to create a Skinner blend. I think this is souffle cherry pie, and this is the igloo and souffle. I found that I actually like to make canes out of souffle. I ordered some sampler packs on Amazon to try it out, and it does seem in the summertime to work well for cane making because it doesn't get overly sticky. I'm not going to make massive canes, so in the palm of my hand, that's what it is. I am trying adding some extra light so I don't block my overhead light, but I see I'm getting some shadowing, so I don't know. We'll try it out and we'll see what happens. So the first thing we're going to do is create a teardrop Skinner blend. You can do this making the triangles. However you want to make Skinner blends, make a Skinner blend between these two. So first I will take these and kind of do like a chopstick motion and make a triangle, or a teardrop shape, sorry. And see, this red's already getting all over my hand, so I don't know how clean this white will stay. But after we Skinner blend it, it's going to look pretty pink anyways. This one's a little bigger, that's okay. Hopefully we'll get some fairly clean white on the end. I'm going to flatten it out a little bit because it cannot fit through my pasta machine that wide. I use an Atlas 150 on my pasta machine, and that's how I'm going to fold it once and roll it once by hand, and then I'll put it through my pasta machine. I'm also working on a separate kind of matter tile here, so we'll see how that works too. Okay, so I'm just going to create a Skinner blend running through my machine. If you don't know how to do Skinner blends, there are tons of tutorials on how to do Skinner blends, so I don't think I need to show that. Unless you want a Skinner blend tutorial, then tell me and I'll eventually create one. Okay, I'm going to run this through my machine. I'll be back when I'm done with the Skinner blend. Okay, so here's our Skinner blend that we have so far. See, when I hold it up, it looks really dark because I'm using that light. Let me shut this light off. Hang on one sec. So it can autofocus. Yeah, I think I'm just going to use the overhead light and then tilt this to the side so it's at a little angle. So here's our Skinner blend. I can go further, but I tend not to. I hate sitting here for 20 minutes making a Skinner blend, but this red is like getting all over my fingers. That's probably why I don't use red very much, whether it's oil paint or whatever, because it tends to make a mess. Okay, so next thing we do is we need to make a really long, thin strip. The best way I know how to do this, and the way I do this, the easiest way. Now you could measure this to make these exactly perfect, but I don't tend to do that. I tend to just go for it. Eyeball. I do put the cut side against the cut side so I can get it fairly flat. And it is a lot harder to do this stuff on camera than when you're doing it by yourself. It really is. I don't know why, but it really is. Okay. I tend to just put this little piece on top. Here, I'll put it on the end. Even though it always looks a little funny, but once we fan fold this, it'll be fine. So right now this is what we have going on. So next thing we need to do is flatten this out a little bit because we need to run it through our pasta machine to make a really long skinny strip. So this won't fit my pasta machine like this, that thick. So I'm going to roll it out some. And pretty much you got to take it down to your thinnest usable setting. Everybody's thinnest usable setting is going to be different. I mean, everybody has roughly the same thickness of the final setting on their pasta machine, but you may not be able, like mine's a 9 is the thinnest setting. I can't always work at a 9. It's too thin. It's too difficult for me to work the clay at that thickness, so you really have to decide what's easiest for you. You know, if it's winter time, hey, it may be totally easy to do a 9. Summertime, like right now, probably not. A little stretch. So I'm going to run this down through my settings. I go down, I'll start at a 0, then I jump to a 2, 4, 6, and then I'll go down until I feel like it's getting too sticky, and as I roll it out, it's going to stick all together. So let me do that part. One quick note, when you put it through your pasta machine, always put it, dog hair, from the dark end to the light end. That way if you have any pasta machine sludge, it won't stick on your white, it'll stick on your dark red or your darker color. So always put it that end in first, coming out to this end. Okay, just a little tip. So I just ran it through my 0. I'm going to continue on. Okay, so now I have a very, very long strip. You can't even see the other end. And we're going to begin fan folding. Now when you're fan folding, it really does not matter, or concertining, or however you want to say it, it really doesn't matter what side you start on. So it's hard when it's long. No matter what, just get a fan fold going. You pretty much, however you do it, you want to get a block with one color on one side and the other color on the other side. So however you normally do that, do it now. And it's hard when you first start it because it's really thin and really, really long, so it makes it difficult to concertina or fan fold. Once it gets a little shorter, it's easier to manipulate, but right now it's like hanging all the way over my desk. So just back and forth, back and forth. I did end up getting it to a number 7, so that was the thinnest I felt comfortable going because it's hot out today. It's so humid in Vermont today. Like, you can feel the wetness in the air, the thickness. It's been thunder, like downpouring, but then, which usually cools it off, but it's not. Sunny, and then all of a sudden downpour. Sunny, downpour. It's weird. The day's weird today. And the air is so thick. So thick. It's crazy. And it's really, my camera's like right here. It's really hard for me to do this on camera because everything's in the way. So once I get it slightly shorter, I'll toss it back and forth from hand to hand. I'm going to pause this and I'm going to finish it because you don't need to watch me go back and forth. Okay, I'm on the last couple. One. I hate to cut parts out because some people are new and are trying to learn techniques and are struggling with techniques and they need help. And you know, some experienced players may find this a little bit tedious and boring to watch. That's okay. I mean, you can always fast forward, but if I cut it out, there's no way for you to learn it if you don't know it. And it doesn't need to be perfect, okay? Don't beat yourself up if it's a little wonky. Okay, and now we're going to just gently squish it to make a square. See how soft everything is. I don't know why my dogs are barking upstairs. Trying to get a fairly even log here, or block. Okay, so next we're going to cut the log in, or the block, into 3. Okay, so you know what, I actually want to reduce this down some. I want this to be a little bit shorter and a little bit wider from dark to light. Just want to change the shape of this a little bit. Just roll that out. I'm not pushing nearly as hard as at all because it's so soft. And I could squish this like nothing right now. Okay, so now we're going to cut it from dark to light in 3 slices. So we're going to try to get 3 even, so I'm just going to mark it. That looks pretty good. And what you can do if you have trouble slicing down is guide right here, you know, so make a mark on one side. Okay. This is just a trick if you're not good at this, and you can see it a little bit from the top here. Then go ahead and make another mark. From that one straight over. Make sure it looks fairly good, and then spin and take that mark and go one more time. Okay, and then, you know, when you're going down through, you can look at both of these sides because both sides have a line, and make sure you're following that line. Okay. You know, and go slow. Rock it, look at one edge, stop, look at the other edge. You know, if you're not confident in cutting, you can definitely do that. Make yourself some guide marks. Even cutting like a round cane in half. Okay, so now we have 3 pieces here. And now we're going to pinch the ends. So we're going to make it kind of a petal shape because we're making a flower. So my goal would be to make a shape like this with dark at one end and light at the other. So I've done 2 of them like this, and try to keep them roughly the same height and roughly the same length. And no one's dying in the background. It's my fiance watching a video. Okay, so then I'll do one more with you guys watching. I'm going to flatten it because it's a little taller than the other ones right now. So I'm going to flatten it down to get it roughly the same height. And then we'll take the ends and begin pinching them. And because it's one solid color on one end and one solid color on the other end, you can do that fairly easily. So I'm pinching it here, but I'm trying to make it not get too wide, because when you pinch it, see how it starts to get wider? Just press it back in. Okay. Check it against your other ones. Check both ends. And I've never made this cane before, so I'm winging this, okay? This is another day, 30-day cane challenge that I'm playing with. Okay, so we have 3 roughly the same shape and size. And then what we're going to do is place it dark to light, dark to light. So if we start with a light on one way, we're going to have 2 darks on the other, or 2 lights and a dark, 2 darks and a light, or a dark and 2 lights. If that makes sense. And we're going to start to make this into a circle by putting them together. So we're going to put one around the other like that, and this one. And polymer clay you can manipulate, so manipulate it. Let's check the other side. Like that. And now let me just quickly roll this to make sure they're stuck. Okay, so that's what you should have next. Now we're going to reduce this into a length enough to get 5 cuts out of it, okay, because we're going to do a 5-petal flower. So again, just like my other videos, the way I reduce is by pinching in the middle, giving it a waist. I don't tend to roll round canes, and then I work my way up to the end. This red is, this souffle today is sticky. Flatten that end off. Start in the middle, work my way up to the end. the end a little push to flatten it back off. You can pull it. Give it a quick roll maybe to even it off. Gently flatten your ends. Start in the middle. Give it another waist. Work your way up to the ends. In the middle. Working my way up to the end. Gently flattening my ends off. Usually I don't worry about my ends. Give it a little roll. My ends are still just slightly fatter than my insides, so I'm going to do those quickly. And then we're going to again start in the middle. And I think, you know, if we're going to do 5 pieces, we could do 5 1-inch pieces pretty easily. And the only reason why I roll at the end is just to make sure it's fairly even all the way around. Okay, let me just move this out of the way and let's see how long it is. So if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Well, we got to go a little longer because we're going to have a little waist on the end, so let me just do it. Well, let me try to pull it a little bit actually, rather than... That's going to be all waist, but we're going to have to reduce it again. Whatever, let's go with it. Okay. Let's cut off our excess here. This is really soft, so this is right now what we have. And the nicer you make your skinner band, the better it's going to be, or the more it's going to look different. It's going to look different if you take your Skinner blend down further than if you leave it less blended. I don't know if that makes sense, but so then we're going to cut into 5 1-inch pieces. 1, 2. I did my first one a little off, so I'm going to do my other one slightly off too. 3. 4, 5. Okay. Next, we need to pitch each one of these logs into a petal shape. Okay. I'll be right back, and I'll show you how to do that. Also, if you wanted a wrap around this, like to have a contrast color, you could have, before you cut it, you could have, or reduced it down when it was in that small, when we first pushed the 3 pieces together, you could have wrapped it in a contrast color. I didn't really want to do that, so we'll see how it turns out. So next we're going to pinch these into a petal shape by pinching the dark and the light ends into a petal shape. Our cane's going to be roughly about 1 inch tall. So whatever you want. Right now I'm just taking my 2 fingers and I'm try to make it fairly even. Look at it from all directions. Okay, there's 1. I'm just trying to get the lines fairly even. I'm going to pinch that one too. So a lot of times you could start in the middle and just press inwards together. but you want one of these at the top, one at the bottom of the middle one. Trying to keep them the same length as every single one here. Okay. And I'm more kind of going into a diamond shaped right now, is what I'm going to use for a petal shape. You can do whatever kind of shape you want, really. It's just a little tall, so I'm just trying to like push it back together. This one was a little skinny. And one more. Like that. Okay, so now we're going to form a flower. Just don't stick them together. Just pick pieces and get your shape, pretty much. Decide what ones look fairly similar, like these two look a lot similar. Now you also need to decide, do you want your dark on the outside or do you want your light on the outside? It's really going to depend to you. Let's see. We could alternate them. I think I'm going to want my light or maybe I want my dark on the outside on this one. Most of the time I put my white on the outside, but let's see what it looks like with a dark on the outside. I struggle with the 5-petal cane, or the 5-petal flower. I do. I like to get it to look right. It's a pretty looking cool flower, I think. So now we need to get a center in there. So mainly you were just checking them for height, figuring out what one you wanted to go where. I might just pinch these edges to make them a little less triangle-y and a little more rounded. So hot, it's so sticky. I mean, this is like so sticky. So play with your shape until you're happy with what you have. You know, this is the time to modify your shape. Okay, so now I need to get a roll of something to put in the middle. So let me go into my scrap clay box and find a little log. I don't like to use a pure color or something new because it's just a tiny little center. So let me grab that. I wanted to show you, I just ordered these boxes off of Amazon and they're really thin and skinny, so I'm going to use these for my canes. I think for like 30 bucks it came with 10 of these, and they're only 1 9/16 inch tall, but they're 10 by 11 inches. So right now this is my scrap clay one where I got kind of just, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to bump that, where I got excess clay in here. So let's see what we got for colors. I could use some scrap metallics I have. We could use like a blue, nope, a piece of green. I have a little white and translucent mix here, I could use that. I have this left over from my leaf cane. I have this from another thing I was doing. I mix that up. Let's see what that gives me. Let's use that. Just a little piece of that. Hey, why not? Have fun with it. I'm going to leave it kind of marbled a little bit. This was like bright green pearl. This was like a purple pearl and a blue pearl and a black. So we need a small little sausage to fit down in the middle of there. And I'm not good at rolling sausages, so using something flat, a little block, can really help if you're not good at rolling sausages out. Let's cut a piece roughly the right height. Might not be perfect, but that will be our center. Let me just see here. Yeah, let's cut a little off of that. And I'm going to stick it along my top, my first petal. The top petal of the 5-petal cane. Just right on the little point. That way I have it stuck to something. And then I'm going to cut that. I'll put that back in my scrap. So there's one. Okay, and then we're going to fit our petals around it. And again, I'm just going to gently set them here because once you stick them together, at least in the summer, they're going to be fairly stuck. What if I switch? This one's a little skinnier. What if I make the bigger one my top? So just look at it and see what's right in your eyes, you know, and we all have different eyes, so to one person it's going to look one way and to another person it's going to look another way. My doggies are coming down. See what Mom's doing. Okay. And you don't want to smush them all the way together because we're going to put some translucent in here in a second. What do you think? I think that looks pretty good. Okay, I'm going to get myself out a little bit of translucent before we squish these together. This is where how I find it easier to do it. You could squish them together and then make little triangles of translucent to fit in. For me, that's harder. So give me one sec. Let me grab some translucent. I'll be right back. Okay, so I took some translucent and I rolled this out on my Atlas 150 on a setting 4, just so I have a nice little thin sheet, but it's really, setting is really not critical. The best way I found to do this, because we're going to pack this whole thing with translucent, but to get it down in here is to cover it, I guess. So let me get, first, let me see, how do I want to do this? Do I want to wrap the whole thing? I think I'm going to wrap the whole thing. So let me start here. Let's get a rough length. It doesn't need to be perfect, just a rough length. Okay. Okay, so I don't want the translucent to go all the way to the center, so what I'm going to do is set the translucent on, you know, if this is the inside of my flower, this is the outside, so I'm going to set my translucent on a little bit up. I'm actually going to pinch the edge too, just to make it a little finer on the edge. So I'm just pinching the edge, and I'm going to set my translucent up a little bit from the, and I'm going to wrap it around the whole top. That way we have a layer around the top. And then around, I'm keeping one side fairly flush. This side's hanging over, but I can cut that off in a second. I can cut it off right now too. Oh my god, I hate summertime. What if I get my craft knife out? Oop, bump the camera. Just cut a little bit of that off. You kind of know how long you need it. And again, this doesn't need to be perfect. Just get it close. Take this end over here, pinch that end so it comes finer. And there's many ways to pack canes. I'm sure you guys have watched different ways on different tutorials. It's okay if one side's a little shorter. You know, either you can lift it up a little bit and drag it down. You can leave it a little shorter. I mean, flowers are very natural, very organic. So don't beat yourself up. In different Facebook pages and things, people really beat themselves up. You know, clay's supposed to be fun. We're supposed to enjoy it, have a good time. Just let it be relaxing more than stressful. If you're doing this to sell, that's a different story, but I sell what I like to sell. I sell what people like. If they see a piece and they end up liking it, then I sell it. But I don't make things for, well, I made that a rule now. I don't make things for people when they ask for something if I don't want to make it. Because I've made things before. I'll have to bring in that pendant that the girl asked me to make for her daughter, and then she never came and got it. And it's sitting there, and it's not something I would ever wear. So I'm stuck with it. And I wasted all that. And, you know, it doesn't, yeah, it's a peacock, you know, made for like a 12-year-old, not a 30-year-old. So, anyways. I'm just continuing to wrap this around. I'll do this second one and then I'll show you, or I'll skip through and do the other ones. Just pinching the edge. Laying it down on. And that was my top one. So on that one, I'm going to stick this guy back to it. And then I think that was my side one. Checking both sides to make sure it's fitting. Okay, so far this is what we got. And if you wanted to, you could put some there, but when we reduce it, the goal is that we'll squish together like this. Okay, so I'm going to do the other three the same exact way, and then I'll be back when I'm done that part. Okay, so now we have it filled in quite a bit. Now we have to just fill in these little triangles. And obviously doing any cane with filling with translucent takes quite a bit of translucent. So does filling it with any color. So I like to fill mine with translucent. That way you get kind of designs like the pendant we made the other day. You know, where you have the flower and you don't really see any kind of outer border. I mean, you can see a layer of translucent right there, but only on some. So the next thing I do is make little bitty triangles. So I roll out a sausage and with my fingers like this, I push down to my board or my flat surface. I'm going to set that in there. And break it off, okay? I'm going to do the same thing, roll a fairly even triangle or sausage, make it into a triangle with my fingers, and I'm pointing the pointy part of the triangle down in to that, and then break them off. And always check both sides of your cane, because you don't want to be looking good on one side and then the other side looks all wonky and screwed up. So always be watching both sides of your piece. Okay, making sure they look as even as you can. I mean, they don't need to look perfectly even. I mean, one side's always going to look a little different from the other side, but make sure at least each side on their own looks good. Okay. Just put those down in there. Patting it in. Like that. Okay. And then we're going to continue filling around. And I tend to just continue using sausages. For me, that's the easiest way. You can make a triangle fit that. So okay, so you could do it with sausages. Let me show you another way, just so you can see both ways. Take a thing of clay, and we're going to try to match that shape. So about the same height as your piece, and I might not have enough here. Let's make a triangle. That's really irritating sounding. Trying to make a piece fit down in there. It needs to be a little flatter. Something like that. But I find I struggle with that. So however you want to fill it, just fill it in, get it filled in till it's up to the tips of the petals. And there's no rocket science behind this. I think people try to make it rocket science, but it really, you can do multiple pieces. Once you reduce it, it will look fine. Because you're going to compress it all together. Down in there. Yes, I'm always being careful with my fingers. I've never cut myself with a tissue blade. I don't plan on it anytime soon, and even if I do, it's not the end of the world. You guys can't see anything that I'm doing, can you? Because I zoomed in. So this is time consuming, filling these in. It's very slow, but just, you know, enjoy the process. Have some TV on, which is what I usually do, rather than a camera. I am using white translucent because that's all I tend to order. You know, we're getting there. I gotta finish putting it. I'm almost there. Oh god, we're getting there. You guys couldn't see that. Put a little skinny log over here. Zoom out a little bit so I can just look at what I'm doing and not look at the camera. See what we're getting? But because we put that little layer on the outside, we know our petals are going to have roughly that shape. I mean, throughout, like, the lower part of the petals. My canes tend to reduce fairly well, so for me this way works well. I've tried it the triangle way, where I make just a solid thing of the triangle, a triangle out of translucent, and that does not tend to work out well for me. I struggle more with trying to get the triangle to fit in there perfectly, and because it's such a thick layer, then I end up squishing the other petals. So with just doing a bunch of these little guys, I tend to be okay with that. Just like that. So I'm going to continue doing the rest. I'm going to leave this one just like this. It's not perfect, I know, but I'm going to shave off a little of that. But I don't like to use too much if I can help it. I try to be stingy. Okay, so I'm going to do the same exact till they look like this all the way around. And I will be back when that's done. See who's looking at me? This little one. Sitting at the bottom of my desk, he had his head resting on my legs. Yep, that's my little guy. Okay, so we're now done filling, and this is what it looks like, and I know it is slightly indented, but that's fine. So if you can see this, I filled with circles, and then when it got fairly flat, I did a layer from like here to here on each one, and then I put some circles in the middle. Okay, that's how I pack it. Next, I'm going to wrap with a layer of translucent. I have this rolled out on setting 4, whatever setting you want. So I'm going to just quickly, roughly cut it to size. Doesn't need to be perfect either. Don't overthink it. And you know, these are just my techniques and the ways I do things. There's all kinds of ways, but I found these help me the best, and this is what works for me. So it may work for you, may not work for you. Okay, so we're going to begin laying this on. All the way around. My foot's falling asleep. My foot is falling asleep. Hit that seam a little bit, and then when you pull it back, there will be an indent, and that's roughly where you want to cut to put them together. A little overlap right there, and once I just get it stuck on there, I'm going to shave off the excess here. And then we'll begin reducing this. And it's kind of a star shape at the moment, which is fine. You can make it a full circle. You can reduce it as it is right now. This is about almost 2 inches tall. I guesstimate to say, no, it's 1.5 inches tall. So it's not crazy tall, but tall enough to work with. So let me get rid of all this translucent. Okay, and we're going to begin reducing this, and you can, you know, pinch it in between. You want to give it a waist. Either way, you want to give it a waist. You can pinch the edges a little bit. Just kind of try to evenly do it all the way around. I know you can hear my dog in the background chewing on his bone and my fiance playing his podcast. Okay, and then see how we have a nice waist there, and then we're going to come up doing the same thing. And you can pack it enough to make it a full circle, however you find that works for you. Oh, I gotta finish this end. Do that. Usually I tend to get a little more round than I just did, so it's okay. And you see how it's bulging out? I'd rather get bulging out than pushing in, than the suction cup thing in, if I can help it. So I'm just working my way up to the end and pushing in between the petals first, and then I'll do a little bit on the petals themselves. You can pull it. This side's still a little fatter than that side. And your fingers can fit right in it, so like just work it. Pull it, manipulate it, get it to do what you want it to do. You can, on the flat ends or in between the petals, you can just work one area at a time. We'll see how this comes out. And you never really know until you cut it. Which it's really hot right now, so it's going to smear quite a bit, I bet, when I cut it. But I have to cut it to show it to you. And then we'll probably use this in a project soon. But if I did the cane and the project all at once, it would just be an outrageously long video. So we got to do them in parts. And then if you don't want to see a project with the cane, you don't have to watch it. And if you do, you can. And for some reason, always a couple of my petals get smaller than the other ones. It's just kind of the way it is. I don't want to really flatten them off like that. I want to kind of leave them as they are. So it's kind of like reducing without a border or without backfilling. You're doing a lot more pulling and smoothing than you're doing rolling or pinching. I'm taking the petals and I'm pinching in, kind of like we did when we shaped the petals. I'm doing two at once. Obviously, you're going to expect some distorted ends. You would always expect that. This end's really wide, so I'm going to keep doing this end. Just pushing into each other. Try to do this as slow as possible. This is not a part to rush. Take some of this off and see what we're looking like. And obviously it's smeared quite a bit right there. But that's just from the end. And that looks pretty cool, I think. Looks pretty neat. And then I would cut a chunk of this off and continue reducing it down smaller. So here is the finished cane. I'll reduce it off camera, but I'm going to continue doing the same things we were just doing. This one got squished a little bit, obviously, this end. Don't throw these ends away. These ends, you know, I just cut a slice out of that end. That doesn't look that horrible. So I'll take a chunk off of this and reduce it down some more, and then I'll come back and show you my reduced parts, but I'm going to reduce exactly the same way. Again, you could have filled these in more and reduced it as a circle. This is actually my first time reducing it as a star shape. But, oh well, we can test it out on camera. Why not? So I'll be back when I'm done. The other thing I'm noticing while reducing this kind of shape is that it would probably be really difficult to do it if you had long fingernails. Now, because I'm in the medical field, I can't really have any fingernails that are longer than my tips, ideally. When I cut them on Sunday, or by the next weekend, they kind of can get a little longer than that, but ideally you don't want them overly long. So I don't have that issue, but if you were one that had really long fingernails, it might be a problem for you. Oops, sorry, I got off camera a little bit there. So this is quite a bit smaller. Let's see what I got there. And this is so soft it's distorting, so just bear with me. It's really, that's a distorted end a little bit still, slightly. But I would use that and cover it up with another piece. So I'm not going to cut that off. And here's the end where I cut it from the other one. I think it's a pretty cool looking cane. So I think that's where I'm going to end this tutorial. I think it's pretty. It's different, it's neat, it's very unique. I'll let it rest maybe a day or so and then kind of find a project to put it in. I think a different color would be cool, so I might make a different color of it. Put a dog hair on it. But anyways, I really hope this tutorial was helpful for you guys. I hope it was interesting and gave you inspiration. You can make these petals any shape you want. You can make them fatter, skinnier, wider, whatever. So use that Skinner blend design and create whatever you want with it. Just play and just have fun and enjoy the process of doing it. So if this was helpful to you, please please share. You know, share it on different Facebook pages that groups you're on if you're able to. You know, because this may help other people. I now have 40 subscribers, which is great. It's not a lot, so please help me out by sharing and liking the video. Any comments you have, feel free to write it down below. Also, my name is Katie Gordon. I live in, I think on my Facebook, it's Milton, Vermont. Feel free to message me or show me things that you've done with these designs, any of the designs. I'd love to see them. Have a great night.